We are the Games and Interactive Entertainment Trade Body, so it's a funny old world, trade association world. If you were to tell me 2 years ago I'd be heading up a trade association, I would have laughed in your face. But actually, it is my favorite job so far, and I'll go into explaining why. We are here to basically support, promote, and grow the games industry in this country. Of which we have a brilliant heritage and a brilliant strength. The games industry and interactive entertainment industry is something that is massively important to the economy, and lots of MPs are recognising that fact now. You know, it's no longer the case that MPs and policymakers and important people kind of see games as only being played by spotty teenage boys. That stereotype has slowly been eroding, and a lot of work that we do is about helping to shove that stereotype out the window as fast as we can, because games, as we know, are incredibly powerful as learning tools and are incredibly powerful as entertainment, and in fact is the future of entertainment. I come from a kind of mixed world. I used to work at a broadcaster. I used to work at BBC commissioning content, and I used to work at Channel 4, which I'll go into a little bit, commissioning content. And really, broadcast industries and traditional screen-based industries have no idea what's hitting them. They really don't. And it constantly shocks me how little they understand truly about game design, about the craft and the skill that goes into creating these incredibly immersive and compelling and powerful interactive experiences. And storytelling, and they have absolutely no clue. So I won't go into too much about what we do at UKIE, but essentially support, promote, grow. So we do a lot of work with politicians. That's me, with Ed Vaizey, who is a huge supporter, and he was basically responsible for the tax credits that we got this year, and that the games industry will have this year, which really puts the games industry on a level playing field economically with the likes of film. And that's incredibly powerful as a sort of, you know, a sort of confidence boost, you know, recognition of how powerful the games industry is. The games industry is faster growing than TV and film and music globally. We are a huge powerhouse. So we do a lot of work with politicians. We do a lot of lobbying, a lot of political work. So we had the tax breaks announced last year. I'll go into a little bit more about what I'm holding up in that picture on the left, which is our local call to action to MPs around computer science on the curriculum. That was our second big win last year, but I'll go into that in a little bit. We've also done a lot of work around finance, you know, and helping companies and startups and talent access money. We've done a lot of work on crowdfunding, which we believe really fills in a gap for a lot of people who want to start businesses. And we do a lot of media work. So that was me, the most terrifying experience of my life, live on Channel 4, defending Habbo Hotel, and that horrendous, right, we're going to go in as journalists and find pedos story. Oh, I forgot this has been recorded. And that was absolutely terrifying, and Krishnan Gurumurthy talked all over me, so I talked all over him. But that's my job. I'm here as a promoter of the industry and as a defender of the industry, and we are the funnel for people in the industry, and we are the loudspeaker, because we believe that, you know, we're better as a collective than we are alone. The games industry is hugely diversifying, as we know. It's moved from this traditional AAA box product business, multi-million-pound games. Fewer and fewer titles have been released of that nature because it's all been franchised, and it's a high, sort of little bit risky. But it's diversified. That is still a very strong part of the market, and console games and the next-gen consoles are still going to fuel that growth. But these companies and a lot of the habits and a lot of the ways that we're playing in tandem with the developments and technologies and platforms and simple tools like, well, I say simple, says the non-coder, like Unity, to actually make games, means that the diversification of games, the kinds of games that are out there, the kinds of different ways that we can play them is enormous. And this kind of represents just a little bit of kind of visual of the different ways in which people are playing games. There's a big, you know, we as a country in the UK compared to the rest of Europe are really leading on apps and mobile games. And this is where we see the growth of a lot of the smaller companies, and a lot of our high growth membership area is, sounds pretty, is in the small startups who are doing iOS games and Android games. And you know, we know that more than 1 in 3 people regularly play games. When you go further down demographics, it's almost 100% of kids play digital games of some kind. And the average gamer is in their mid-30s. It's probably older now. You know, my generation, I'm 40 in a month. I grew up with Pong. Pong saved my eyesight, I like to say. Not quite as dramatic as that. I wore glasses from the age of 5, and instead of having to have a patch over my, my squint eye, my optician advised my parents to buy Pong and make me play it, covering up my good eye and playing it with my bad eye, and that still hurts now. But that meant I escaped bullying by having to wear an eye patch because of Pong. So I always get a cat into every presentation. I have to. It's my job. You know, a lot of the economic potential hasn't quite been realized yet with this transition and this move from the big console games and a diversification into other platforms, and particularly mobile. And our business models are incredibly interesting and diverse in this industry. So, you know, we're leading the way again in terms of other creative industries. Music really has no idea about different business models, whereas we've got free to play, where the average microtransaction is probably around $14 if you believe some people, some analysts. But companies like Boss Alien are making, well, sorry, not Boss Alien, Natural Motion, who bought Boss Alien, they made $12 million through CSR Racing, which was a free game and monetized through microtransactions in its first month. These are incredibly interesting business models, and it's just part of a mixed economy of business models. We also have a really, really strong heritage in games, and we have fantastic, great British brands. Little Big Planet, we have Batman being made in London, GTA. We have fantastic British brands, but not a lot of people actually realize we do. And this is, again, part of what we're here to do. And a lot of these British brands and games that we know and love were created, and our heritage is based on the fact that kids, when I was a kid, we had access to these things, and we had access to BBC Micros. And actually what happened was that we started tinkering, and we were able to lift the lid off of the computer and actually start to program and start to do simple coding, and then learn from that and actually iterate, and then realize that actually we could make a game that we could release and make millions on. This is from the Oliver brothers, who now run Blitz Studios. And that, if you talk to the Oliver brothers, they're twins, and it's really difficult to know which one you're talking to at any given time. And they are absolutely brilliant. And their stories of how they started as teenagers in their bedroom, competing against each other, playing games, and then beginning to code games, is so incredibly compelling. And then they get on to their sports cars, that they, then their first sports car that they bought together, that I think they bought when they were about 20. But their games that they started coding at home because they just were able to, were top of the bestsellers in the 80s, and are part of our really, really incredible heritage. And we believe that it's time that we got back to that heritage and got back to that way of thinking about games, because they are incredibly powerful tools. You know, the media, when they talk about games, they always focus on the 7% of games that are age-rated 18. So it's always about the violence or the blah or the blah. And actually that is happening less and less. It tends to just be the Daily Mail. The games like this, they forget about the incredible awesomeness and diversity of games, and the power of games as a medium in which to explore collaborative working, team working. This is Way, which, if anyone, has anyone played Way? No. Look this up and go and play it. It is incredibly brilliant as a sort of collaborative, non-communicative. You don't communicate in any other way except by like this, and And you just play against anyone random in the world, and you have to help each other, traverse this platform and get to the end point. And I mean, I love games. I am so unbelievably rubbish at games, and I have no patience at all. And I could tell I'm the one on the bottom, my fellow player was on the top. I could tell he was literally like, even though the movement's just very, very simple, you could literally tell he was like, oh, will you just go over there and open the door for me? And it was hilarious. But, other games like, in the AAA market, console games like Journey are similar, and they're more like a sort of poetic experience and an exploration in communication and working. Has anyone played Journey? Quite a few nods. This is an incredible game, and I would advise you to go and play it on PlayStation if you can. You just know that you need to get to this point. And along the way, you may meet some other players, and they are real players, but again, is non-verbal communication. And the way that you actually have this journey and gets this is incredibly powerful. The graphics are beautiful, the soundscape is fantastic. And these are the kinds of games that really, it annoys the shit out of me when people say, our game's art, our game's part of our culture. Of course they bloody are, because people are making these, and they provide incredibly powerful and emotional experiences in some cases. I'm going to rewind a little bit. I wasn't always a trade association type, and I hope actually I'm not a trade association type, which is the whole point of being in a trade association. I'm not a trade association type. I actually started off doing a PhD in the mid-90s, and this was we were talking last night over dinner, and I decided, oh no, there's going to be academics in the room. I better talk about my PhD, but how I got to where I am, basically. So I started looking at online communities in between, and we have the master of MUDs here, but in between Moo and WWW. So I was looking at online communities and IRC and MUDs and Moos and game, text-based adventures and those kinds of online environments. And because people often ask me, why you're not from the games industry, but this is the point, interactive entertainment has been with us for a very, very long time. In fact, we interact all the time, and sometimes we're entertained. And Derek will go into, I'm sure, learning, and so will Richard, learning and play, and how, this is nothing new. Play and learning through play and learning through interaction with other people, no matter through what medium you do it, has always been with us. And this was what I used to study. And I found this last night again. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning after dinner finding all these images. And these are incredibly, brilliantly evocative worlds that we created through words, and experiences. And our vice chairman is Ian Livingston. And again, we joke sometimes that he invented HTML, hypertext, because he basically, with Fighting Fantasy, invented the genre of interactive fiction, before, all on paper. So I was really inspired when I encountered IRC and I encountered people engaging and communicating and having these fantastic human and emotional experiences through online worlds. And I was also inspired by this lot. This is EA, 30, 40 years ago. And I just love this picture. I especially love the glove in the top right. It's brilliant. And they weren't called EA by accident. They're called Electronic Arts for a reason. And I love this quote. They talked about games, or what they were trying to do in terms of software and electronic arts. It's a communications medium, an interactive tool that can bring people's thoughts and feelings closer together, perhaps closer than ever before. And while 50 years from now its creation may seem no more important than the advent of motion pictures or television, there is a chance it will mean something more, something along the lines of a universal language of ideas and emotion, something like a smile. And I absolutely love that quote, because I think it's incredibly important to remember that about games. I then, after my PhD, didn't really know what to do with it because it was 2000 and no one really knew what the hell I was talking about when I was talking about virtual communities and online communities and young people and identity. So I actually fell into journalism. And I was desperate. I was a technology reporter for BBC News, and I was always looking for those stories that allowed me to write about to write more on my PhD topic. And I remember this story I did about alter egos, it was called. It was a photography exhibition and turned into a book. And Robbie Cooper's photographer was sponsored by PlayStation after he was covered in BBC News to go around the world, and he met people and their avatars and their virtual representations. And this was one such boy he met. And it really pisses me off when people still have this cultural bias about communication and interaction and experiences. And they have this cultural bias that away from the keyboard or meet space or paper or face-to-face is better or somehow more privileged than digital communication and interaction. It really annoys me, and it is a cultural bias and it will die away, but it still exists. This boy had incredibly powerful experiences as a robot in ways that he couldn't otherwise. So then I after being a journalist, I then got into commissioning, and I was commissioning multi-platform entertainment at BBC. And again, I was incredibly frustrated, and I was commissioning content around bloody Strictly Come Dancing and Apprentice and Dragon's Den, and I was so frustrated at BBC because, and this is still the case, unless it was something to do with making money, I was not allowed to commission games. I couldn't commission games, and I thought, but I'm a multi-platform commissioner for entertainment. As far as I'm concerned, to reach the audience you're trying to reach, they're playing games, we know this. And it was very frustrating. I couldn't do what I really wanted to do. I did manage to commission the online version of Only Connect. Anyone play Only Connect or watch Only Connect? Do you play it online? Yay! and that was as close to commissioning a game as I could get before I left the BBC. Luckily, I was headhunted by Alice Taylor. She said, dude, you're so frustrated at BBC, come and work with me. I'm in education at Channel 4. And the beauty about what Channel 4 was doing was that they were education commissioners. They weren't digital commissioners. They weren't multi-platform. They were just commissioning content in education. And at the time, their budget was £6 million. And their remit was to reach 14 and 19-year-olds outside of school with non-curriculum based soft skills learning. Catchy. And they decided that obviously, that demographic's attention was, if it's not on Facebook, it was on games. So they decided, well, let's reach them with games. Let's try and give them really compelling games experiences and try and just provoke them into asking questions. It wasn't about teaching them. We never started at the point of, let's commission education games, because that's the wrong starting point. We started from the point of who are the people who understand this audience, what they're doing, what's wrong, what they have issues with, and let's try and provide an immersive experience. So I'm going to show you two projects that I was very proud of. The first was Sweatshop. And we started from the point of macroeconomics, global economics, value chains. When people are shopping in Primark, do they actually realize where those clothes are coming from? Do they actually realize the production of the, why they're so cheap? And we really just wanted to provoke teenage girls in particular, and boys, into thinking about the chain, the value chain. So we commissioned Sweatshop. I'll show you a trailer to begin with. So the point of the game was that, and I think one of the secret to the successes of a lot of the Channel 4 education games were about using very familiar game mechanics and very familiar games that people were already playing. So this was using a tower defense mechanic or a tower offense mechanic, which is very familiar to iOS games. And this is actually out now on iPad if you want to, for free, it's free. And, you know, it was crucial that this had blood, you know, that actually it was a bit dirty, it was a bit, and that the boss figure who, you know, you're answering to as trainee manager was a nasty piece of shit, you know, and that the scripting and the writing, it was Little Loud who produced this down in Brighton, that the scripting was going to capture the imagination and speak to a 15-year-old, and it was a bit subversive. You know, and that was the secret. It wasn't that we're shoving down the fact. And we made no judgment. We weren't trying to tell kids that sweatshops are wrong. We were just trying to get them to provoke them into thinking about that value chain, because the idea was that you had to use child laborers in this game. But depending on how you responded to some of the options, so whether you gave them water or whether you gave them a day off or whether you, you know, you actually looked after them, gave them access to a fan, the outcome would be different. So that was one example. The second one that we did that I was very proud of was Nightmare High. And this was a sort of second version of a sort of what we called really catchily a system of content. I couldn't find a better way to explain it, that we did for SuperMe. And SuperMe was video of celebrities, because kids love celebrities. These are their role models, sadly. Some of them are right. They love celebrities. They love hearing about their stories and their experiences. They love games. How could we tie these together in a system of content? And this was before gamification, that evil term, which some of you might be familiar with, came about. So you, as you watched and as you, you know, sort of read tips or took quizzes or watched videos or understood things and played games and scored, your whole score in the system of content would build up. So this was a second version. This was aimed at 10-year-olds. This was aimed at 10-year-olds who were about to leave little school and go into big school. So it was about resilience, and it was about understanding that failure is okay, and it's okay to just feel okay. And sometimes you'll feel less okay, sometimes you'll feel more okay, and that's okay. And that's actually something that everyone throughout their life should just remember. And it was helping them to deal with, you know, being out of a small environment where you're a big fish and going into a big environment where you're a small fish. So dealing with that transition. So I'll show you the trailer for this first as well.
A new school. My new school. Pretty scary, but I had a plan. Don't get lost. Just try and keep my head down. I'll try and avoid trouble. I won't forget my gym stuff. And I will not freak out. I'll do just enough work. I won't be too funny, too loud, or too quiet. I'm going to make a good impression. And most importantly, I will not blow up reality. Well, that was my plan. But it started to go kind of wrong. I didn't know Liam Baston had a favourite desk. Or that Chloe Finch cries about absolutely everything. First break. No, please don't throw my gym stuff out the window. Oh. So, I had to do gym and the evil kits from the cupboard. Walk of shame. I saw my sister at lunch. She just completely blanked me. By expressive arts, I was totally losing it. I read out a poem I'd written. Liam Baston must have liked it, because he put it on YouTube. And pretty soon, every kid in every class in the country knew about my epic fail. Last class, panicking, no mates, no control, no idea. And that's when it happened. My day was so bad, it was unreal. So bad, I blew up reality. How to get back? You tell me.
So the idea of Nightmare High was that you start after watching this first piece of video. And by the way, all the kids in that, we filmed this at a real school, and all the kids in that were just kids from the school. None of them had done any acting, the voiceovers, everything. They were absolute stars. And the bully character is actually the nicest boy in the world. So this is then the start of the game, or the system of content, whatever you want to call it, interactive story. And you see at the bottom there, all those characters that you encountered in the trailer, in the setup video, are the characters that you have to help through your journey through this game. And at the bottom there, you see all the different chapters and episodes. And one might be a mini game, one where you're helping you're trying to find your truth specs, we call them, which helps you to see why people are behaving in the way that they behave. So you can see into people when you find your specs, and you can see that the bully is doing this because, you know, there's issues at home, or, you know, in a light-hearted way. And then you also watch some of the episodes of video or other video where you get clues as to how you might, where you might find or unlock other achievements that you need to get. And at the bottom on the left, so all the characters are represented by these blobby characters with holes in their stomachs so that you can see their emotions. And you get fixed points. And the aim is that you have to unlock all these achievements and get these points with the help of characters like this chap, who is Dementor. We found him on YouTube. He was a brilliant YouTuber. And we gave him this part of Dementor, who is you know, your guide throughout the game. And as you work your way through, you are encountered again. You encounter different quiz questions and different kind of provocative things that you have to think about. And one of the exercises, for example, is writing a letter to your past self. So, and those letters actually fed into the system, so other players would be able to read other people's letters about, you know, their experiences and what you would tell your 10-year-old self when you're 12. So you basically work through and you gain points and you unlock books of faces with all the characters that you've managed to help, or the characters that you've managed to speak to. And these characters, or the book of faces, you unlocked the character cards by watching videos from celebrities as well. So this is Labyrinth, who is absolutely brilliant. And he's one of my favorite people. I didn't know who he was before. But he's a musician. He was Tiny Temper's producer, and he's a really popular musician. And, you know, dotted throughout this story is these kind of documentary pieces to camera where, you know, these celebrities are talking about what it was like for them when they started big school, or if they encountered bullying and so on. And it is incredibly interesting, you know, the effect of hearing these stories from real people that they looked up to. So there's two examples where I think you know, we managed to use games and interaction and interactive entertainment in a really compelling and a really, really impactful way for young people. If you want any more examples, I can send you some more links and some research about the impacts, particularly around the resilience lessons that we were looking at. But I just want to return then to what I'm doing now and why all of what I've just said is very important to what we're doing as UKIE now. Again, I'll go back to this coding point, to this heritage point, to these things, this starting point for our industry. We've lost that now. This report, Next Gen Skills, was commissioned by Nesta. Sorry, it's commissioned by DCMS, the government, and Nesta did it. And my vice chair and absolute legend, Ian Livingston, co-authored it with Alex Hope from the video special effects industry. Because we identified that we, as an industry, have similar problems. We don't have enough kids coming through the system who are code literate, who understand code, And that's not about learning a particular language, it's being code literate and aware of it. We don't have enough teachers who can teach. Well, we have people trying to solve that problem now, who you'll hear from in a minute. But we don't have enough teachers who know how to inspire kids into this craft to create these kinds of experiences that we're so very proud of. And the Next Gen Skills Report did a whole bunch of empirical evidence and spoke to kids. And it was just shocking. There's a brilliant video, which I think you said one of your schools was featured in. And when asked, when we asked kids about where do you think Batman Lego is made, where do you think Grand Theft Auto is made, they all thought their favorite games, they shouldn't be playing Grand Theft Auto, by the way, if they're under 18, but they all thought that their favorite games were made in Japan or America. They had no idea that we had and have a phenomenal industry right on the doorstep, and that if they are really into art and really into physics, they are the perfect people to feed our industry, and they can have a fantastic career. So this report was incredibly powerful because what it did was it really tried to shift the political agenda in the education system in England away from just reading technology, so away from ICT, which was all about reading and consuming, and shifting it to production and producing and writing technology. This is a workshop, I think this was at Gaines Britannia, where kids are learning very simply how to code a PS3 game. And it really did a lot politically, this report, because at the same time, Eric Schmidt from Google came over to the McTaggart lecture in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh TV Festival, and it's about 2011, and he said, shocking, you guys had this amazing heritage with ZX Spectrum, BBC Micro, and people in your games industry is brilliant, and yet you're teaching kids how to use Microsoft Word and Excel. You're not actually teaching them, and you're not letting them, because you actually don't need to teach them, but you're not providing the right environment for them to be creators themselves. Sort it out. And we'd already been shouting about this through the Next Gen Skills report that came out about 2 months before. But then suddenly, because Eric Schmidt says it, because Google, because America says it, then UK politicians and Michael Gove go, ooh, yeah, I better do that. But to be fair, it was also the powerful work of Ian Livingstone. So we kicked off what we called the Next Gen Skills campaign. And this was entirely funded, paid for by UKIE members. So UKIE membership money went to pay for this. And what this did was it got together a collective, a coalition of people who wanted the same thing, from GCHQ to Jaguar Cars to Facebook to Microsoft to Google to games companies, who all wanted to fix the education system so that we were actually having a talent pipeline of creators rather than consumers. And last year, we actually won. Michael Gove, this was in the first month of me in my job, Michael Gove was at BET and made the announcement that ICT, boring ICT, would be disapplied from September 2012, and instead would leave a space for rigorous computer science on the curriculum. And this was fantastic because this was we never thought that would actually happen so quickly. We were told by DCMS, it's never going to happen. You can have the campaign, you can try, but it's not going to happen. But it did happen. And then now we've had the announcement that computer science is now considered a core fourth science, which is brilliant. And what we did was, there's still a lot of work to do because what we need is also people with those creative skills, those artistic skills. So getting computer science onto the curriculum and working with people to get rigorous programs of study and to support teachers, to train teachers, to provide informal ways of learning, inspiring kids into coding, particularly girls, is the other part of the job that needs to be done. So at the moment, changing the curriculum in England and Wales, just in England, is kind of pre-alpha stage as far as we're concerned. But we did like a local call to action to MPs. We went to all the MPs and said, right, you've got to start the debate in your school. What's your school doing now that ICT is being disapplied? Are they teaching computer science? Do you have after-school code clubs? What are you doing? So we produced this with MPs, and hopefully that's had an effect. Because we know, and I'm not going to go too much into this because we've got better experts than me, but we know that there are so many tools out there to get kids interested. They love games anyway, and if you can give them tools and entry points, the right entry points and right support, and actually a lot of it's pupil-led, to start creating their own games, they learn about storytelling, they learn about music and audio and soundscape, they learn about procedural ways to thinking. That's Scratch, this is Kodu, another tool, I won't dwell on that. Game-O-Matic is something in Bogost, I never know how to pronounce his name, has created. Go and check it out at gameomatic.com. Incredibly, you can create a game in 5 minutes, in 5 seconds, in fact. Incredibly powerful. And these tools, you know, provide an entry point, not just to create games, the things that they love, but also an entry point into maths and physics and other disciplines and other sciences and other things that they think that they hate. But at the end of the day, no matter what tool that you're choosing to try and inspire kids into coding, it's actually not about the language. It is about this procedural way of thinking. This is one of my favorite sort of representations of what we mean by this. It's about problem solving. It's about algorithmic ways of thinking. And this is actually the core skill that kids need to come out with. Not necessarily, oh, I can code and whatever. It's about understanding this way of thinking. Because what we have coming down the track and what we have now are things like Raspberry Pi, are things like going back to that age of the tinkering, back to the age of the BBC Micro, hopefully, and the ZX Spectrum, where, I mean, frankly, to be honest, this doesn't appeal to me at all. You know, if I was a 12-year-old girl, I am a girl, but if I was a 12-year-old girl, and I was given this, I'd kind of go, it looks like a broken computer. However, lots of people are turned on by Raspberry Pis, and they are fantastic. And the fact that they're now being manufactured in this country as opposed to China is even better. But these are brilliant entry points. And people need to understand the language or the kind of approach and how to program, how to speak to these dumb bits of kit. And they need to see the power of what happens when you can speak to dumb bits of kit and actually make them do stuff that you want to do. And new kind of hardware is a result. This is a UKIE, I never know how to pronounce it. That was a crowd-funded project. But then you get this brilliant thing happening when they understand how to talk to dumb bits of kit to make them do stuff that they want to do. It might be a game, it might be something else. They start to then think more about physical things and this crossover. And you know, we are entering into an environment where we are going to have sensors, we are going to have smart objects, the Internet of Things. We're here. We're almost here. And we need to be able to be the masters of that and the mistresses of that rather than let them control us. We have 3D printing. One of our board members is Alice Taylor, Alice, who I had nothing to do. I didn't have a vote on the board, but I did ask her to join UKIE because she left Channel 4 and started Makey Lab. And Makey Lab, because she was so disappointed with the lack of positive role model dolls out there for her daughter on the market, and the fact that most of them are manufactured very cheaply in China. So she actually started a 3D printing company, an interactive entertainment company called Makey Doll. And this is more like the kind of thing that would actually inspire me into coding. So Makey Dolls are dolls that you personalize through an avatar builder online, and then you 3D print them, or they 3D print them for you. And then they're developing a game world on tablet in which your avatar is represented and you interact with the world and your doll. And people are doing really interesting things with this. This is a LilyPad Arduino, which was invented by a woman, by the way, because all these dolls have spaces in their heads for brains, and they come built already with spaces in their arms for wires and sensors. And this is one of my favorite examples of what people are doing. This is Ian Hughes, ePredator, I think he's used a gobo, but he's basically using his doll to control this character on screen, which I think is hilarious. I mean, great. Yay, you win. This is another one of my favorite ones. And now she's done this is just a fan of the dolls who, you know, part of maker culture. She's just hacking the dolls, she's just doing her own thing, she's making these ears, and she's making it do stuff she wants it to do. And now she's made it so that those ears respond to sound. So that's what I would like to see if I was a kid in school. And the fundamental point I'm going to leave with is the fact that, I touched on it before, we need to be the masters of this and the mistresses of this. We need to program or be programmed, which is one of my favorite books from Douglas Rushkoff. This is a quote from it. When human beings acquired language, we learned not just how to listen, but how to speak. When we gain literacy, we learn not just how to read, but how to write. And as we move into an increasingly digital reality, we must learn not just how to use programs, but how to make them. In the emerging, highly programmed landscape ahead, you will either create the software or you'll be the software. It's really that simple. Program or be programmed. And that's it. So sorry, it's a bit sort of all over the place, but that's me and that's it. And thank you very much.